Good afternoon, happy Sunday afternoon. We're back in our little house. We've got the Squirtle holding the camera. We've got hot chocolates. We've got Molly's usual pink mixed berries, and we've got my usual salted caramel. Yours always looks so much nicer than mine, but mine tastes yummy. And we've got all our friends here. We've got Gingerbread Man, we've got Penguin, we've got Robin, we've got Father Christmas, and we've got Reindeer.
And Robin flying.
And Robin flying again. Cool, we've got some lovely stories again today. And as I said yesterday, we're picking out some for Christmas week so that we can kind of like have one perhaps every night on the run up to Christmas. So what have we got today? We have got, this is a bit weenie, but we'll have to get in really close for this one. But Elmer's Christmas. We got, what I'm trying to do is just so kind of go with me on this. I'm trying to do like a one longer one and 3 relatively shorter ones. Today's longer one is The Snow Dragon by Abby Elphinstone, and whoever the other person is, Fiona Woodcock. I think she's the pictures. Abby Elphinstone, I think, is the writer. We have got Kipper's Christmas Eve. We realised that we've got lots of Mick Inkpen books, and we didn't realise we had so many Mick Inkpen books. But Mick Inkpen, I think next week we're going to have Zoe and Beans, and that's a Chloe and Mick Inkpen, so Mick Inkpen and his daughter. So Kipper's Christmas Eve, and we've got over the first lockdown we had lots of Sue Hendra books, and we've got lots of. Trying to think of them all. Barry the Fish with Fingers, Norman the Slug with a Silly Shell, and this is the Norman the Slug with a Silly Shell, but his Christmas one, Norman the Slug Who Saved Christmas. So we will have that. But I think we will start, if that's alright by you, we'll do the long one first. Mm-hmm. We'll do Abby Elphinstone and Fiona Woodcock, let me move that, with The Snow Dragon. What does it say? You can be late for many things in life, but you should never keep an adventure waiting. So let us see what happens. That's pretty for a start. Right, here we go. The Snow Dragon. It was Christmas Eve, and Phoebe could see that the little town of Whistlethorpe was covered in a thick layer of snow. It was the first snow of winter, and it had come silently in the night, the way magic often does. To Phoebe, the snow felt like a promise that today might be different from all the other days, and that, just possibly, there might be even more magic waiting for her. Phoebe lived in Griselda Bones' Home for Strays, where the strays were children, and the home was in fact an orphanage. Once you were in, you were very firmly in. Until Miracle Day, that was. Once a month, Griselda opened the gates to parents hoping to adopt a child. If you were picked by one of the families the day you left, that marvellous day became your miracle day. Only it never seemed to happen to Phoebe. The pile of books Phoebe was balancing on in the attic, where she often hid away and looked out at the world, swayed, and there was a scratching sound, followed by a yap, and a chestnut brown sausage dog clambered up the dusty tower. "Snow Herb, isn't it brilliant?" Phoebe exclaimed, but Herb was only really interested in 2 things, cuddles from Phoebe and dancing. Phoebe sighed. Today was a bittersweet day. It was her friend Jack's miracle day. Phoebe was happy that he was going to live with a real family, but not even Herb's pirouettes could distract her enough to forget that with Jack gone, she would be the only child left in the orphanage. "It's just you and me now, Herb." Oh, that's sad. She was the only one left. And then, even though she knew it was against the rules, Phoebe whispered, "Come on, if we're quick, we'll have time to wave Jack off and hurry back here before Griselda finds us." Phoebe scooped up Herb, clambered out of the window and shimmied across the roof towards the fire escape. They hurried down the ladder and raced to the front of the orphanage just in time to see a car pulling away, Jack looking over his shoulder, and as Phoebe waved through the gates, her friend's eyes lit up. "I'll miss you," Jack shouted. Phoebe stood before the tall dark gates, and there was a low and very loud growl, and with a sinking heart she turned around. A large, grumpy dog stood on the gravel, and there came another growl. "Slobber, where have you got to?" A woman appeared, short and stocky, with shoulders that gobbled up her neck. Griselda peered over her clipboard at Phoebe, then looked back at her register. Girl with hair as white as snowdrops and eyes as large and round as puddles, she read. You're the one who stares at nothing through windows, aren't you? Phoebe shook her head. Oh, it's never nothing, Miss Bone. There's always something to see. Griselda swelled up inside her suit. You should know that at this orphanage, daydreaming is banned, skipping is forbidden, and hide and seek is out of the question. Phoebe finished glumly. Griselda rapped her clipboard. It is my duty to grown-ups everywhere to wage war on childishness. I will not rest until I've blasted daydream, skipping, and hide and seek from our country. Phoebe wondered where on earth all the daydreams and skipping would be banished to. Norway, perhaps? I have decided to cancel the Christmas holidays and continue with lessons, Griselda snapped. We must look to your future, Phoebe. There is algebra there, and fractions, grammar and spelling. And before Phoebe could reply, Griselda was off, dragging her into the orphanage. Then, flinging open a door which led into a cold, bare classroom. Sit, she barked. We will start with grammar. Phoebe tried to ignore Herb's samba in the doorway and began completing the sentences in front of her. Excuse me, Phoebe said. I've finished. Griselda scanned Phoebe's sheet of paper and made a strange retching sound. Whispery and flumping aren't even words. Dogs like dancing. Herb made a sharp exit. There was only one suitable response to each sentence, Griselda boomed. Snow falls down. Food is necessary. Children are annoying. And dogs like bones. Phoebe hung her head. You are a word mangler of the very worst sort. That is the reason nobody wants to adopt you. Only a night in the kennels will drive this childishness out of you. Phoebe tried to protest, but Griselda and Slobber were already marching her outside. Griselda flung Phoebe into a kennel and fastened a metal cuff around her ankle before striding away with Slobber at her pinstriped heels. Phoebe sniffed as a tear smudged down her nose, so Herb scampered inside the kennel, performed a hopeful little waltz, then snuggled into her chest. And while families laughed and sang and played beyond the orphanage walls, Phoebe and Herb watched their Christmas Eve drain away. But then, tiny white flecks started falling down from the sky. Cold in here then. You cold? It's snowing, Herb. I reckon this chain's long enough for me to climb outside. We could build a snowman. They rolled a ball of snow back and forth, and after a while, Phoebe stood back and beamed. He's like a guardian, Herb. Someone to watch out for this Christmas. She paused. He's possibly a little bit magical too. And as the girl and the sausage dog looked, they had the strangest feeling that maybe there was something more to their guardian than first met the eye. Hours passed and Phoebe lay shivering in the kennel. Then, just as she was about to fall asleep, a movement caught her eye. It was nothing much, only the feeling of an image half glimpsed. And when Phoebe looked again, though she was looking, something extraordinary was happening. The snowman was changing. Ribbons of snow were twisting free and spinning in the air until they rose before the kennel in a swirl of glittering silver. It can't be, Phoebe whispered. Right there in the grounds of the orphanage was a dragon, and its snow-carved body glinted in the moonlight. Then the dragon spoke. His voice was soft and feathery, and he simply said, "Hello." "Hello," Phoebe found herself replying. "I'm Phoebe, and this is Herb." The dragon wiggled his enormous ears. "What fine names for adventurers." Phoebe's chest swelled, and Herb did a quick can-can. "We're going on an adventure." The dragon nodded. "Dragons only appear to those who need them. We stay for one adventure, and then we melt back into the landscape," he smiled. "I suggest we set off. You can be late for many things in life, but you should never keep an adventure waiting." Phoebe's eyes grew large, because that was quite possibly the best sentence anyone had ever said to her. As the dragon spoke, the cuff around Phoebe's ankle clicked open, and a white cloak appeared around her shoulders. The dragon lowered his body, and Phoebe climbed carefully up its leg, before settling herself and Herb just below his ears. Do you know why my ears are so large? The dragon whispered. Phoebe shook her head. So I can listen to all of the wonderful things that you have to say. Phoebe's heart glowed. There might be a woman in pinstripe trying to tear her down, but here was a dragon building her up. The dragon lumbered forward. One stride and he was over the gravel, another and he was past the flower beds. And just as Phoebe thought they would career into the trees, he surged into the sky. Up and up they went. "We're flying, Herb!" Phoebe cried. She looked down at the streets below and noticed a gap in somebody's bedroom curtains. 2 children were sitting up late in a bed, and in between them there was an unopened present. But when Phoebe peered more closely, she saw they were snatching the present back and forth. Phoebe frowned. "Why are they fighting, Snow Dragon?" "They do not realise how lucky they are," the dragon replied. "They are always wanting more, but everything they could ever want is right there already." The dragon raced on over country lanes dusted with snow and lakes locked in the cold, hard gleam of ice. "What do you like best in the world, Phoebe?" the dragon asked. Herb gave a little bark from her lap. "Other than Herb," Phoebe said, "I love trees and mountains, though I've only ever seen them in books, and I think the sea looks very promising too." The dragon chuckled. "We'll go north then, where the forests are bigger, the mountains are higher, and the seas are deeper." And north they went, the dragon's wings shredding through the pearly night. He dived over a forest, breaking just before the canopy, and Phoebe stuck out her arm to grab a fistful of snow. She smiled. Here she was on the back of a dragon, exploring an untouched kingdom of snow and ice. "We're like birds, Herb, as free and as fast as birds." They sailed over a train rushing through the countryside, and Phoebe gasped as she took in the carriages of people. "What happens if we're seen, Snow Dragon?" "Oh, we won't be seen." The dragon's voice was soft and low. "We all have the gift of wonder, Phoebe, but sometimes we forget how to take a good long look at the world, and so we miss the miracles all around us." Phoebe stroked Herb. "I won't ever forget." They flew on to the mountains, where the summits reached up and touched the sky. The dragon circled the highest peak and then sank lower until his talons crunched onto the mountain top. He folded his great wings in, and they sat without saying a word. The whole world spread out below them. Then, into the silence, the sky began to change. Strands of green shimmered between stars, and then waves of purple rolled through, sending new shades twirling across the sky. "It's the Northern Lights, isn't it?" Phoebe swallowed in disbelief. "Would you mind if I howled? It's just all so wonderful." The dragon's wings twitched, and Phoebe suddenly worried that he was annoyed she'd accidentally mangled another word, but the dragon only smiled. "I was thinking just the same thing. Howling on 3? Phoebe nodded. Then she emptied her lungs into the mountains, and the sky and the dragon howled and Herb barked. And for a few minutes it was just the 3 of them, sending their voices out into the wilderness, as if they were part of the ice and the rock and the swirl of colours around them. Then the dragon rubbed his head gently against Phoebe, and though she tried to stifle her yawn, it squeaked out. He pushed off from the crag, and they skimmed over mountains, glens and castles until they were whizzing above the silver sea. The dragon's talons tore through the surface, and Phoebe swung her hand down to touch the water so that she would remember. Days later, when she was trapped in the orphanage, that she'd ridden a snow dragon over the North Sea. "Happy Christmas, dear Phoebe," the dragon whispered. Phoebe ruffled his ragged ears. "Happy Christmas, Snow Dragon. It's been the best one of my life." Herb did a celebratory jig on her lap, and then they sat watchfully as the dragon glided back over the countryside. The stars were still shining when they touched down in front of the kennel, and Phoebe wondered whether any time had passed at all. "Thank you," she said as she slid down the dragon's leg, "for the adventure and the talking and all the other bits in between." Phoebe wrapped her arms around the dragon's neck, and he closed his wings over her. After a while, he drew back, but as he did, he spoke in a rumbling whisper. "Someday your life will open up far beyond these orphanage walls, and when it does, Phoebe, I want you to remember our adventure. Be content, be watchful, be brave, and never stop believing in miracles." The snow before Phoebe began to shift and swirl, then the dragon faded. Phoebe's cloak vanished too, and she felt the metal cuff round her ankle again. She turned to Herb, and together they traipsed back towards the kennel, to dream of skies that danced with colour and mountains cast in ice. The next morning, Phoebe woke to the sound of footsteps, and soon Griselda came into view. "Slobber and I were mulling over our latest policy for the war against childishness. It's called How to Stamp Out Word Mangling." She glared at Phoebe, whose teeth were chattering. "What do you think?" Phoebe tried to conjure up the snow dragon in her thoughts. His magic had made her feel important, but now a horrible emptiness spread out inside her. She took a deep breath as she remembered the dragon's words and willed herself to be brave. "Happy Christmas, Miss Bone." "Christmas?" Griselda ground the word between her teeth. Then she threw Phoebe a dark smile. "I'd forgotten about our Christmas chase. The only thing that makes this dreadful day even slightly bearable." Phoebe shuddered. The chase was a miserable event which saw Griselda and Slobber pursuing the children through the orphanage until Slobber found the juicy bones they were told to clutch. "I'd thought there wouldn't be a chase this year with all the orphans gone," Griselda sniggered. "But Miracle Day didn't come to everybody, did it?" Phoebe shook her head. Griselda performed several squats, and then she wrenched the cuff from Phoebe's ankle, and minutes later Phoebe was crouching at the top of the stairs, a bone clasped tight in her hand. Griselda's whistle blared through the house, and Phoebe's whole body trembled. "Run!" Griselda yelled. Phoebe and Herb tore down the stairs before skidding into the hall and racing towards the grandfather clock. They clambered inside it and pulled the door closed behind them. Outside, paintings crashed to the floor and furniture toppled. Phoebe squeezed her eyes shut as she thought of the snow dragon's words. "Someday your life will open up." Phoebe wished that day closer. Let it be now. Let it be today. "To the attic!" Griselda yelled to Slobber. They ran from the hall, smashing vases and tearing down lamps, and so it was perhaps unsurprising that they didn't hear the doorbell ring. But Phoebe heard it, and a flicker of hope stirred inside her. Quietly, carefully, she pushed the grandfathered clock open and tiptoed towards the door. Then, hoping so hard that her toes curled up inside her shoes, she turned the handle. A man and a woman stood before her. The woman had long brown hair and a smile so full of warmth and kindness that Phoebe felt her knees wobble. She looked at the man beside her, whose hair was also dark, but whose eyes were as bright and blue as his scarf. The chase raged on as Griselda and Slobber clattered around the corridors, but the couple didn't seem interested in any of that. "We received some paperwork this morning," the woman said, holding up a file. "These are the legal documents for the adoption of a 7-year-old girl with hair as white as snowdrops and eyes as large and round as puddles." Phoebe's heart fluttered. "It's you, isn't it? The child we've always been hoping for." Phoebe stayed very still and very silent. She didn't want to ruin the most exciting conversation she ever had. "The documents are signed by a lawyer from a firm called Snowden Dragonis," said the man, and, glancing behind him, "although the orphanage was locked, we climbed over the gates anyway because we hoped that you might be inside." Phoebe shut her eyes for a few seconds and then opened them again, half expecting the couple to have disappeared. But they were still there, and the paperwork was still there, and the possibility that she might be wanted and loved, that was still there too. Her miracle day had come, and it was more wonderful and more magical than anything she could have dared to hope for. "I'm Phoebe," she said quietly, "and this is Herb." And while Griselda and Slobber stormed through the orphanage, the man, the woman, the sausage dog, and the 7-year-old girl with hair as white as snowdrops and eyes as large and round as puddles climbed over the padlocked gates and walked out into the world. The end. There, it had a nice finish. That was quite a long book, wasn't it? Maybe we should have saved that for our run up to Christmas ones. But these are all nice and short. Elmer's Christmas. How are we doing for time? What time?
19.
19. Right. Okay. Yeah, these are only a couple of minutes long. So Elmer's Christmas. I think we've got all the Elmer's books somewhere around. David McKee, who was for the grown-ups, he was also the man that drew the pictures of Mr. Ben. for those people that are of a certain age. So, Elmer's Christmas. Elmer, the patchwork elephant, smiled. It was 2 days before the annual visit of Papa Red. The young elephants were excited. "Take them for a walk, Elmer," said an older elephant. "Then we can wrap the presents in peace." "Come on, youngsters," Elmer called. "We'll go and get a tree." And squealing with laughter, the young elephants hurried after Elmer. "Are we going to where Papa Red lives?" they asked. "Close by," said Elmer. "Have you ever seen him, Elmer?" Elmer smiled. "Yes," he said. For the rest of the walk, they asked Elmer all about Papa Red. The walk went up, and the jungle became pine trees. Then, for the first time in their lives, the youngsters saw snow. Papa Red was forgotten. Elmer left the young ones to play in the snow and went to choose a tree. "Hello, Elmer," said a moose. Let them see Papa Red tomorrow, but keep them hidden. We'll have a busy night ahead." "I know," said Elmer. "We won't bother you." Elmer chose a tree that would be easy to put back later, and the youngsters helped to carry it, but by now it was late. "Straight to bed when we get home," said Elmer. "We have a lot to do tomorrow." And the next day, everyone helped to decorate the tree. "The presents, the presents!" shouted the young elephants. The presents, wrapped and decorated, were placed around the tree, and when it was finished, the other animals came to admire it. "Wonderful," they said. That night, when the big elephants were asleep, or pretending to be, Elmer collected the youngsters together. "This is your chance to see Papa Red," he said. "Hide where you can see, but not be seen." The youngsters had just hidden when, out from the sky, came 6 moose pulling a sleigh with Papa Red aboard. They landed, and Elmer helped load the presents into the sleigh. "Thanks, Elmer," said Papa Red, and then he winked. "I'm glad you weren't seen." They're all looking at their glasses. Papa Red flew off. "We saw him! We saw him!" the young ones shouted. "He took the presents!" Elmer laughed and said, "This is the season for giving. We give, and Papa Red takes the presents to whoever needs them most." Once all the elephants were finally asleep, Elmer tiptoed among them. By each young elephant he placed a present that Papa Red had left for them. Elmer smiled. "Good old Papa Red," he said. The end. Elmer's Christmas. So that was Elmer's Christmas, who's an elephant, and this is Kipper's Christmas. Kipper's Christmas Eve, and Kipper's a dog. Kipper's Christmas Eve. Right, do you need a bit of hot chocolate?
Okay.
Have a little slurp of hot chocolate. Because it is blinking cold down here.
Yeah.
Are we doing more crafting after this, do you think?
Mhm.
Yeah. I made a lantern yesterday, and it kind of went better than I expected, so I'm going to make another lantern this afternoon. "Which is best?" said Kipper to himself. "Christmas Day or Christmas Eve?" He reached the top of a big hill and stopped. Presents or expecting presents? And then, because he was too excited to decide, he just whooped and went charging down the slope towards the wood. It was Christmas Eve, and he was looking for a Christmas tree to take home. In the middle of the wood was a little fir tree. "That's the one," said Kipper. He dug away the snow with his spade, and then he grabbed the tree and pulled. It wouldn't come. He pushed it, shook it, twisted it, and lifted it. Then he looped his scarf round it and heaved and heaved and heaved until it did thump. "I wonder what Father Christmas will bring me," thought Kipper as he dragged the tree home. This year, as every year, Kipper couldn't think what sort of present he would like. "I expect I'll know what I want when I see what it is," said Kipper. He was still thinking about presents when he saw Pig and his little cousin Arnold coming over the hill. "Hello, Kipper," said Pig. "Do you want a hand with that?" Pig tied his own scarf to the fir tree, and together they heaved it up the slope while Arnold toddled along behind, sucking his thumb. He was pointing at something in the tree, but Kipper and Pig were too busy talking about presents to notice. At Kipper's house, they stood the tree in a bucket. Arnold peered into the branches and walked round and round the tree until he bumped into a pile of Christmas presents. One of them had a label with his name on it. "Happy Christmas, Arnold, love from Kipper," it said. "You mustn't open that until tomorrow," said Pig, but he already had. Kipper's present to Arnold was a reindeer hat. "The red nose lights up," said Kipper enthusiastically, "and it flashes too." And then his face fell. He'd forgotten to buy the batteries. Arnold didn't mind. He loved his hat, even without its battery-operating flashing red nose. "That reminds me," said Pig, "I haven't wrapped up your present yet." So Pig went home, while Arnold stayed with Kipper to help him decorate the Christmas tree. "What should we put on top, Arnold?" said Kipper. "A snowman or a star?" But Arnold didn't seem to be interested in the decorations. He's looking at that mouse, is he? Arnold climbed onto the stool, took off his hat, and plopped it over the mouse. The stool wobbled and fell over. "Are you all right, Arnold?" said Kipper. Arnold sat up and pointed. Kipper looked at the reindeer hat sitting on top of the Christmas tree. "Clever old you," he said to Arnold. "It's just right." And so it was. Just as they finished decorating the tree, the doorbell rang, and it was Tiger. He'd come to wish Kipper a Merry Christmas and to throw a snowball at him. Pig arrived too. "Sorry it's a bit lumpy," said Pig, handing Kipper his present. "I'm not very good at wrapping things up." "I like lumpy presents," said Kipper. "It makes you wonder what's inside." "Time to go home," said Pig to Arnold. Kipper took Arnold's hat from the tree and gave it back to him. Arnold looked inside. There was no mouse. "Merry Christmas, Kipper," said Pig. "Merry Christmas, Kipper," said Tiger. "Merry Christmas, everyone," said Kipper, as they walked out into the snow. "Look out for Father Christmas." Arnold waved and looked inside his hat once more, just to make sure there really was nothing there. "I think Christmas Eve is best," said Kipper, putting out some biscuits for Father Christmas. He pegged Sock Thing to his basket with the note. "To Father Christmas. Anything, please. Thank you. Love from Kipper." He pulled the blanket up and lay staring out of the window and at the stars. He was wide awake. He wasn't sleepy at all. He couldn't wait for Father Christmas to come. Nor could the mouse, and nor could Arnold. It's the end. Yes. Right, one more story, and then we go back in the warm to make some stuff. So, final book today, Norman the Slug Who Saved Christmas. So we've met Norman the Slug before, when he was trying to pick a shell. Norman was very excited. It was Christmas Eve. His stocking was up and he'd even left a snack for Father Christmas's reindeer. Where's his snack? Oh, carrot. Meanwhile, far above, Father Christmas sneezed, "Achoo!" and without him knowing, a sack fell from his sleigh. Down on the ground, Norman snuggled into his bed. "I hope I've been a good slug," he said to himself. "I hope Father Christmas comes." "Yes, I have been a good slug," thought Norman, and he was just closing his eyes when... I guess that bag's going to fall. Thwack! "Gosh," thought Norman, "I didn't know I'd been that good. Thanks, Father Christmas." Norman dived straight in. There was wrapping paper everywhere. But then he spotted something. "What's this label?" said Norman. It's like Billy, I'm guessing. "The scooter is for Jess," he read. "The ukulele is for Billy, and the football is for Susie. Oh no, what have I done? None of these presents are for me. Billy, Jess and Susie will wake up tomorrow and think that Father Christmas has forgotten them. I'd better get these presents to Wiggleton as fast as I can." Got the Shelby family, Slime Avenue, Wiggleton. Oh, is this going to be scaring me?
What? No, I was seeing if you were here.
Oh, right.
Mummy's out.
Oh, right, we are here. You won't be able to hang on. Right, yeah, you do that? Oh. That was Emily. Who's on a mission today to kind of we're betting each other about kind of scaring each other. I'm 1 up at the moment, so I figured that she was going to try and scare me then, but I'm winning. But Wiggleton looked a very long way away. How would Norman get all the presents there? And that's when he had an idea. Heave! He pushed over the sign. Fantastic, that'll do nicely, thought Norman. Then he set to work gathering all the other things he needed. A bit of holly, a leaf. He was very busy. Ta-da! Now it was time to rewrap the presents. But how? Norman didn't have any sticky tape. But luckily, if there's one thing slugs don't need, it's sticky tape. So with a slither and a slother, the presents were ready. Phew. That's not going to be very nice, is it? A slithery, slothery parcel. Now it was time to put his plan into action. Hey Snails, he called, I need your help. We need to deliver the Shelby family's presents or their Christmas will be ruined. But Norman, said the puzzled Snails, how will we do that? Like this, said Norman. Giddy up. Oh, so there being the reindeer.
That'll take a long time for
That
them
is,
to
it's
get.
not going to be quick, is it?
Yeah.
I think it's...
Well, now they're flying,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
are they? Yeah, no, they are. I don't know how that works. Whee! Maybe they just took a run up and kind of... Oh, one's at least got a kind of
Yeah.
a red nose. Crash! And finally they arrived at number 11 Slime Avenue. Norman, said a snail, how will you get to the chimney? I won't, Norman replied. I'm going to use the cat flap. And he heaved and pushed until the last present was safely through. Quick, Norman, cried the snails. The children are coming. Norman needed to hide, but where? Ta-da! Norman loved being a bauble, and nobody would ever know that a slug had saved Christmas Day. There we go. And there's lots of Normans being... Or is that all the other? That's all the other snails, is it? They're all being, but they're all being balls. Nice work, well done, Norman, the slug with the silly shell. And have we got every other book? I think we already have. Bury the Fish with Fingers. We've definitely got that, and that. We've definitely got Keith the cat with the magic hat.
Yeah.
Doug the bug that went boing. I Need a Wee. That's a bit of a classic, isn't it? No bot the robot with no bottom.
Yeah, we have got another one which
There was another no bot one, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was another. Was there another wee one?
No,
And there's been lots of super
Yeah,
potatoes.
lots.
There's been about 3 or 4 super potatoes since then. Right, that's us done. That's us done. Let me flip it around so that you can say goodbyes. So we'll be back next weekend with more Christmas stories.
Turn it around.
Yeah, more Christmas stories. There's the Squirtle. So we'll be back with more Christmas stories. Any particular requests for any, then just ping me. But I'm trying to think what we've got next weekend. Is next weekend, are we into December next weekend? Almost, aren't we? With the 22nd
Yeah.
today. No, we're still in November.
So like a week and 3 days.
Yeah. So we're still
A
in
week and 2
November, but then the
days.
following,
A week and 2 days.
Yeah, and then it'll be December. Exciting. Cool. So we'll be back next weekend. We're going to have our hot chocolate now, and then we're going to make stuff. So I'm going to make a lantern. What do you think you might make?
I might try to do one of those like maybe the robin balloons if we have any balloons.
Oh gosh, yes. We're going to do. That's what we talked about. Yes, and the picture with the string and whatnot. Let's do that. Perfect. Cool. In which case, we're going to have our hot chocolate. So a ta-ta for now from Molly, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye.